Welcome, everyone, to the Captive Audience. I am Kevin Hoare, your host. And yes, this is a live show. We've had some replays lately when I've been traveling, but we have somebody that's actually worth a replay. But tonight he's live too, Representative Court Boyce, District 1, right? District 1, uh, down in that um, southwest corner of the state, and representing, among others, Curry County and Douglas, correct? And a
Yes.
chunk of Coos. Do you have some Coos
Yeah.
County?
About half of Coos County, all but basically Coos Bay, North Bend.
Got it. And
Um,
yeah, and I we're excited to have you on the show. As you're one of our regulars, but you also have something interesting to say that spans the many issues that affect the state, as well as what's really happening in Salem at the state legislature. But I guess the biggest news for all of us has been the gas tax petition and how that is just taken off like a skyrocket. And what is it? In 10 days, the number of signatures gathered exceeded 150,000, and we only needed 78,000. And I think I saw Jason Williams say, "Well, we're shooting for 250,000 because that is a very significant number, and it's right in the neighborhood of what you would need if you're going to amend the Constitution in the state of Oregon. I happen to know that, and it's just in the range. It's close to the range of what you would need to recall a statewide elected official. Um, I think that's just shy of 300,000. So, that's sending one heck of a strong message. But what have you been seeing and hearing and experiencing as grassroots folks, not just Republicans, but people of all backgrounds, are signing this and wanting to send these taxes and fee increases to the voters?
well, boy, by the way, I have my Doc Holliday shirt on. I just want to make sure this was in honor of you. I'll be your Huckleberry. Isn't that one of his most famous lines?
Yeah, I'll be your Huckleberry. That's right.
And I do a lot of interviews, but I appreciate yours as much or more than any of them. So, Kevin, thanks for having me back on. You know your stuff. You love America. You love Oregon. You've got a great brain, and you're making a difference. Um, yeah, we're all really excited about the foundation that's been built, the incredible organization that Rep. Deal and Senator Starr and Oregon taxpayer, Oregon Watchdog. Uh, just Superman, Jason Williams, and
Yeah.
so they have. I think they knew it would go well. I don't think they understood what is going as well as it is. It's just amazing, and it's just downright inspiring. I think some of the people in Oregon have figured out that okay, if the people that really want to represent us and work very hard are in the super minorities, then this is another way. And to see the governor is just incredibly disappointing to see her come out and basically be against democracy where the people want to vote. They want to vote about their pocketbooks. They want to vote, about their schools. And so, to your point, this is starting a whole new process in Oregon, and I think it might go nationwide to some of the blue states, the people that are trying desperately to save their way of life and just protect the traditional values of our country and our rural areas, and there's people in the metropolitan areas too that are following this and say, okay, I get it, and I'm going to make a difference, and I'm going to work. I know, I told one Kyle Bailey today, the Roseburg radio station, that none of us have the option of just being indifferent, saying I just can't deal with it. I'm just going to pay my bills and hope for the best. But no, you've got to work to impact and influence, or other people that you don't agree with will be governing your life, as we know.
Yeah. Well, that's right, because you might be just paying your bills, but you're going to find those bills harder and harder to pay,
Yeah.
like the one that you pay when you go get your driver's license renewed for the sheer privilege of processing bureaucratic paperwork, and maybe getting testing your emissions out of your car. That's probably almost none of them fail now because it has to be a really old car or has to have damage to it to fail an emissions test. So, you're paying a lot of money for that. You're paying what is now, I think I've seen a per gallon gas prices here in the state between, I paid $2.99 at one location about a week or 2 weeks ago. I saw 325, and it's like, that's really good news. But you know what is happening is, for every gallon you're paying a larger percentage of it is not gasoline. It's tax that is in the form of the gas tax, which they've been just throwing away and spending on bureaucracy and DEI and empty office buildings with empty floors on them in Salem, and telling us that they're not going to plow the snow, and they're not going to fill potholes, and they're not going to do the basics that we all expect the Department of Transportation to do. They're gonna lay off.
I was just going to say, good point.
The line workers.
Shoot. No,
yeah,
go.
So much for standing up for public employee unions. That doesn't sound like, we just discovered that Democrats who say, big D Democrats who say they're for the working class, are perfectly happy not only to lay off the working class from ODOT, but then stick the working class with something that actually is hardest for them to afford. And then, as you were just saying, big D Democrats like Tina Kotek don't believe so much in small d democracy as they like to say. They say democracy is at stake. Really? How about no queens in Salem? I mean, seriously.
Excuse me. Who started that? That is, of course, I'm not going to forget that. And I think it's really going to grow some momentum. And, what a phony deal. I mean, I hate to be negative. She's our governor. But boy, I just seen a series of stunts, for lack of a better term, that she has pulled that has made even some of her supporters just really angry, and understandably.
Yeah,
and,
that's why aren't Democrats suffering an all-time low in popularity as a party across the country? And it's in no small part to behavior like this, where they're just not with the folks anymore, and they're not even with a lot of Democrats. A lot of Democrats have to pay these taxes too. This is not a tax for the millionaires and billionaires, as Bernie Sanders would say it.
Say that again, billionaires.
Billionaires. It's not. It is for people for whom, paying another $100 for renewing your car's registration is a lot of money, right? That ain't no billionaire. And I'm just wondering, have they lost their way? And is this why we have to do this? Because this is, there's taxes and fees, but they've been raising those on us for a while, right? Now, maybe people feel like they've had enough. They're not being heard. The testimony was 95% against these things when they were
86.
Yeah, which is
a
tremendous percentage of the feedback, and it really takes something to get our folks to want to give that much negative feedback. Usually we're like, whatever, I don't care what's going on in Salem, I'm living my life. So you've provoked a bunch of people who didn't, and now maybe it's because the people running our state have lost their way, and they need a message from the people.
I want to give you an example of that. I get along really quite well with at least half of the Democrats, both the House and Senate. And there's a couple of them that I won't mention names, but one in particular with the budget, and the other one that's a coastal rep that's been here for years. And if any of them could be characterized as moderate Democrats, it would be two for sure, maybe a half a dozen. But they're getting radicals to run against them because they're not far left enough.
And primary.
Yes. And and they're valuable in their experience. Do I wish they were a conservative? Sure. But, it's when you go back to basics, the people are starting to understand. I got two choices. I can push so I can spend my own money, or I can give it to the government and let them spend my money. And we know the waste in the state of Oregon. Back to ODOT. There is plenty of money there. No employees have to be left off. What we ask them from both the Senate and the House Republican side, 2-year holding pattern. I think it was Brock Smith come up with the quote, clean your own room, and then 2 years from now we'll talk about new carpet maybe. But just the core mission of and we come up with 700 million in funds that would have absolutely avoided anybody being laid off. So using our employees, hardworking employees, union or otherwise, as leveraging like we're in some chess game, we're fooling with the lives of people. And boy, it's just built a lot of resentment, as you know, Kevin. It's so unnecessary and so wrong.
Well, and we also know that one of the ways they kind of get away with not really even reflecting a significant minority of the people that are against this is through gerrymandering. We've received a lot of lectures lately from Democrats about how bad gerrymandering is. And I just love hearing that, knowing that that's what they do all day long and twice on Sunday when it's their turn and when they've had the opportunity to draw the lines in our state for all the state legislative races and of course for the federal congressional races. And in a state which I think it was 40% voted for President Trump, many Republicans earned more than that, even 43, 44% in districts that Democrats still won. But we only have 1 out of 6 members of Congress, for instance, that are Republican. Well, just do the math. 1/6 is not 40%. Maybe the way our education system has been working in the state of late, and some of its nationally bottom of the heap numbers that they've been producing in terms of performance, you could come up with 40% being 1/6. But that's just one example, and then that happens with all these state legislative races. The reason why I mention this is because that leads to these outcomes where it really artificially enhances the power of people who may not represent the population to the extent that they claim to. And these petitions are a great Oregon tradition that we have the opportunity to correct this, to kick them in the keister and say, this is wrong. And we're doing it right before Tina Kotek thinks she's just going to cruise to victory next year.
Yeah, there's some discussion she might run for U.S. Senate or something. I can't imagine.
Just to make it worse.
Excuse me, I have a little bit of a surprise cough here. Forgive me, but it's what you mentioned a minute ago. They lost their way. To the point to where right before them they see the decline of our state. They see people moving away. They see people pulling their kids out of our schools. They see businesses shutting down or closing doors, moving to other states. And then we get these revenue forecasts that are really not solid in my view. And even if they are, they give us a false sense of security. And the other side basically says, "Hey, great, we can spend more money." And our issue is, where are we spending it? There's just so many. Fighting wildfires to me should be absolutely number one. I've had several meetings in the last 10 days on getting those funds and setting that as a high priority, protecting our forests, protecting our watersheds, pushing back against very unhealthy smoke, wildlife, incinerated, all the above. And oh goodness, sorry about that. So, we've got some work to do. And, I think the people that have left Oregon, all we can do is hope and pray they'll come back, and especially the productive folks and the ones that are still here. Yeah, they're helping us turn that ship, and it's an exciting time. I think we have a real good chance for Monique to be elected to Congress. I think we have a very good chance too for Christine Drazan to be our standard bearer there, carry the torch, and not that there isn't other good Republican governor candidates, but I think it's her time. I worked with her 3 years, and I'm just her leadership and her toughness, her honesty. Same with Monique. I think we just good candidates like that don't come along very often. So anybody's listening to us now, I hope that they they agree and are willing to get all their friends, neighbors, family to work for these ladies that just have so much to offer.
By the way, Monique would never forgive me if I don't mention her website as soon as she's
Ah,
mentioned her. So it's MoniqueForCongress.com. I actually don't know Christine's website off the top of my head, but I can look it up, or one of our super fans here can post it for us. But I think it's important for folks to be aware that there are real challengers emerging to the Democrat establishment, and it's going to happen at every level. I know we'll do it at the state legislative level too. And especially in those seats where we think we can flip something, because think how many people are going to, at least as of the way things are now, are going to see a repeal of these transportation taxes on the ballot right next to the names of the people who, in some cases, voted for those gas tax and fee increases. And they're going to say, "Why'd you do that? I'm not voting for you because you voted to make me do this."
one
And
issue.
that's right. And but there's also, I was just this is just 3 days of headlines from OregonWatchdog.com. You know how they kind of go around the state and they find all these different topics. Some of them are news reports on various publications. Some are the Oregon Catalyst, etc. And it doesn't seem like the leaders of our state um, are willing to declare an emergency for some of the things you think they'd really consider urgent, but they do declare emergencies for stuff that doesn't seem to matter when it comes to citizens of the state. So I'm just looking. This is just a little sample of this. Oregon income growth slows, falling behind the nation and falling behind inflation. So Oregon's doing worse than the rest of the country. And there are some states that are doing pretty darn well in this country. In fact, many of those are ones that people are leaving Oregon to go to. And we've all heard the stories. We know the names of the states. Uh, and then, you know, I look and I see Governor Kotek is threatening to investigate agents enforcing federal immigration laws. She is a governor and she's threatening ICE agents. And And then when I think, well, what would they declare an emergency about in this state? Well, Salem City Council vote is to vote on declaring an emergency declaration over ICE arrests. These are arrests of people who are in the country illegally. And in a I my understanding is according to Tom Homan that 70% of these arrests at a minimum are of people with criminal records. And that's their emergency. I mean, I can think of a lot of things that fall into the emergency category that we should really be considering, and one of them isn't the millions of people that Joe Biden let into the country that flooded in and flooded into our healthcare systems, our education systems, with no accounting for how much it was going to cost us. And that's in addition to all the wasteful programs that the state already was running. And so now we're kind of like, what about our economy? What about these companies that are leaving? I just saw there's a headline. I didn't see the name of the company, but there's a 20-year-old software company in Portland that's leaving for Texas. You add that to the long list of businesses that say they've had it. I don't think. I think many of our best and most vibrant job creator businesses in this state are the ones departing, and they're not being replaced by vibrant job creating businesses, which is a doom loop. And then I saw this, and this is the thing that really just kind of wraps it all in a bow. Economist explains Portland's decline, and that's Eric Fruits. You know Eric, Dr. Eric Fruits. He writes about this decline and the doom loop that Portland's going through. He has to write these articles in order for people who don't understand why all this stuff is going so wrong is going wrong. And nothing here that he's putting in his article is like a tremendous mystery. It's we can see it happening, and it's all caused by policies that have been implemented by the people running the state. And A bail law allowing organized burglary ring to slip away. This is the crazy stuff. And then if we're going to turn this ship, I think it could start with getting people's attention on what's being done to their pocketbooks. But it only starts there, right? There's a lot more to do.
Well, you can just go back to something as simple as Senate Bill 916, which basically give the union essentially give the union's members the right to strike and collect unemployment. And no other state does that. It's just powerful what it says to the businesses. What they don't realize is the employees don't pay that. The employer does. So that's one more notch. I mean, we should have an inventory. In fact, I think I do, of the different businesses that have gone out of business or left Oregon. And it's not by any means a conclusive list. We don't have a real good way, Kevin, to track the small businesses that give up and move. You just mentioned the one that went to Texas from Portland. And you go back and look at the 11 mills that have shut down. There hasn't been any lately, but just in less than 2 years, 11 mills employing families and supporting families in the state of Oregon.
Good, well-paying jobs.
Oh, powerful. And if it all happened at once, we'd think the world would come to an end. But because it's just gradual, Sherry's restaurants in a 36-hour period shutting down 41 of their establishments in the state. I mean, yes, we all talk about Dutch Brothers. We all talk about Intel. We all talk about Nike. We talk, about Fred Meyer's closing near Portland, and it's just those are good jobs. Those are fill-in college jobs. So it's the people that we have in the state legislature. They do not understand business. They've never signed the back of a paycheck. Small business is the first one to work, the last one to leave, and the last one to get paid.
Yeah, that's right. And when you look at the districts, you often see kind of a pinwheel around Portland for a lot of these what used to be swing districts that could go either way, and they all dip in to Multnomah County and Portland in order to keep them, so that they can maintain power despite the fact that they have no clue what's going on in many places in the state. I mean, I'm still amazed at the 6 members of the state legislature that voted against your bill to expedite the process for a golf course to be built, so that we could take advantage of this great opportunity that's been created by the fact that Bandon Dunes is a fantastic world-class golf course, but people still want to golf and can't get in there because it's a high-end, expensive, hard to schedule golf course. So no brainer, right? 6 people voted against that. I mean, what's wrong with that?
Well, we got that passed. It was the last bill of the 25 session, and just moments before we adjourned, Kevin, and 5 weeks later the governor vetoed it, and so that was
she did veto it. I didn't know that. So yeah, so she sides with 6 members of the state legislature. She vetoes it, and she declares an emergency about raising taxes. Otherwise, she's going to make sure that the roads can't be fixed and the snow can't be plowed. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but you said something else there.
No, it's fine.
Well, so there were 6. That's my recollection. Am I right about that?
Oh, there was 9, but it's still 9 out of 60. We didn't know if we get that passed, and it was a good feeling to have. I met the majority leader in the basement with a couple of other Democrats that morning, just going to our cars, and they walked up and said, "Court, nobody wanted to vote against you." So I built those relationships, and that's important. And it was a good bill, and it was very, as you said, very important for economic development. Bandon Dunes with 5 18-hole golf courses, books out now a little over 2 years ahead. So we've got some other good golf courses in Douglas County, Coos County, and 2 very nice ones as well in Curry County. And I mean, it's a clean industry, and we'll just keep promoting it and keep charging up the hill. So but back to businesses closing. We have got to stop them from leaving. We got to be ready to compete and recruit other businesses. We're not going to be able go toe to toe with the southeast. We've even got kids from the north that are starting to really. I heard a little bit of an article or news story last night. A lot of the northern country people are going to southern U.S. schools because they don't get the politics and they get great educations, and they just it's a different culture, and so it's very interesting, Kevin. Very
Yeah, I
interesting.
remember seeing that, and that's a lot of schools that people used to look down on. Think, well, that's I wouldn't go there. I'd go to an Ivy League school, and then the Ivy League schools apparently have watered down their admissions policies and and ramped up their woke trainings. And it turns out maybe those degrees aren't so awesome anymore.
Well, some of
I'm
these kids and some of the parents are revolting too and say, "We'll help you with your school education. We're not going to have you around people that hate America."
Yeah, there's that too. I mean, just attitude towards the country. It's like, who wants to go to a communist training academy and pay all this money for it? It's almost like a total scam. You look at someone like Mamdani, the mayor of New York City now that's been elected. That guy, and I'm not sure he paid. Well, I think he had rich parents, as I recall, but a lot of people are paying to go and have their kids turned into Mamdanis, and then they get out into the real world and it's like the only job that's open to them is Antifa, because or barista, Antifa or barista. But the real world doesn't want somebody who thinks that your job is to come in, tell the boss what to do, and redistribute his income. That's not how companies work. And nobody who starts a company would ever allow that to happen, uh, because they can't stay in business. They can't function. It doesn't work. And so no wonder they don't want to. People don't want to get into sometimes a couple $100,000 in debt to pay for an education that just trains them how to be woke, green commies. And I don't think we're exaggerating anymore, because it
Yeah,
used to be, well, you're exaggerating. I'm like, Mom Donnie, please.
well, it's I'm encouraging everyone I know to understand and study the Islam religion and understand what portions of it are radical. And there is a certain percentage, and I think it's healthy. I don't have any figures to offer, but they figure their design is to take over the world, and maybe it's only 2%, maybe it's 30%. I don't know, but they want to kill anybody that gets in the way. So you mix a radical Islam, and I believe Mondani is with Marxism, that they're using to accelerate their control. And one of the biggest, most important cities in the world, and you go, wow, this is going to be fascinating to see how this plays out. I know the people that I run with. I mean, they'll do anything to keep peace, except, and this sounds radical, except go to their knees. They're not going to leave their families exposed or unprotected, and that goes for their neighbors too. They understand America. They understand the people that sacrificed way before we got here. Why would we want it, Kevin? Why would we want to destroy a system that in 250 years has brought us the greatest medical, the greatest education, the greatest military? We've never in the life of this country taken a 1 square inch of another country's land except to bury our dead. Now, I think that's about as benevolent as you can possibly be. So to hate that system that's give us this unbelievable life, and, when I mentioned military, medical, and education, that's not a transportation. I mean, the list goes on and on. The free enterprise system is it's biblical, and it works, and it's individual responsibility and individual liberty. And so, yeah, we have to protect that. And boy, Oregon's a real good place to start and hopefully have a return.
Yeah, I think it's done more. Our system has done more, not only to lift the standard of living uh, for regular folks that just want to have a better standard of living and work to do it. Not just for people in our country, but actually we've lifted the living standards for much of the world by becoming this prosperous country that then would purchase their products and services and lift them out of poverty. And we've seen more of that take place in the last 70 years. And somebody wants to come in and impose the system that failed and led to tens of millions of people dead and enslaved. I don't get it. All I can think is that they don't know the bad part. They only know the intention or the yes, exactly. That the some of the folks are um, posting here that the governor's vindictive. How dare we challenge her petty ways? Well, that's what happens when somebody gets this power and they just don't offer you something better, and they want to do damage to the system that does want to offer you the opportunity to better your life and live free, live prosperous. Um, those folks, they get petty. They kind of, the no queens thing actually might well apply here. And she's got some of her folks out, um, the union folks that are out there trying to catch people making any mistakes or errors in the process of gathering signatures, which, you're out dealing with the public. You've got petitions and they've got these guidelines. They're going and they're spying on people to see if they can catch them making any mistakes.
Yeah, but we only needed 80,000, so we got quite the cushion.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. This is literally, but this is standard practice for them to do. I used to
Oh yeah,
run the Washington County uh, uh, fair booth, for instance, and we would almost always have some petition we were gathering signatures for, and you could see just like right across the way, somebody would have a camera and they'd be like, filming us to see if they could catch us making any errors. And I'm just like, and it was always, one of these SEIU bulletins that would dispatch these people out there to do it. They'd even pay people to go and do that. But um, that is a movement that is devoid of ideas that are better for the people. They're just trying to suppress the voice of the people as they gather signatures to make their voices heard. And I'm really thrilled that we're doing it. I'm really
assess that for a minute. Why
yeah.
would it be so important for the unions to have higher taxes? Think about that for a minute. I mean, they want to really support their all their people and who have to
Members.
deal with higher prices too. I mean, it's not going to impact their dues, but they see the power of the far left um, starting to dilute some, and so that they understand the grassroots. They understand that they're gonna have to get in the pits with the people that are trying to make this all work, and they, of course they're going to discredit anything they possibly can, and what they can't find, if they find anything, what they can't find, then they'll make it up. That's what the left does, and that's what socialism does. The end justifies the means, and you see it in history over and over and over again. Yeah, a year ago, I don't know if I would have said publicly Marxism, but now there's no rational way to believe otherwise, because it's right there, and it's pervasive, and it's beyond obvious. The evidence is clear, and I don't want my kids to grow up in that kind of tyranny, and so, or my grandkids. So I got a good cause or causes here.
Well, I really hope that there's enough people learning about history to so that we can avoid, the mistakes of the past where some people did fall for Marxism and thought it was going to be fine. We'll try this out and see how it goes. But there's a famous saying that I've heard associated with two groups: Marxists and the totalitarian Islamist states. One man, one vote, one time. What do they mean by that? They love having a democracy if they can get you to vote for them, but then that's the last time you're going to get to vote. And then the other saying that I've heard many times over the years, in addition to that, is you can vote your way into Marxism, but you end up having to shoot your way out of it. And if you look at history, in most of these cases, that's what's happened. There's one big exception, and that was when the United States triumphed in the Cold War and managed to do it without quite the massive war that could have happened just even years earlier. But that's only because we were strong and prosperous. That's why we're able to do it. I can't. I
You
can't.
mean peace through strength
Peace through
philosophy.
strength. That's right. And
That's
we were able
quite
to afford it because we had the world's most vibrant, powerful economy.
it's part of our national security. If you're pushing back against poverty, then a lot of things will fall into place. This is a I don't know. God, that's terrible. This is a Judeo-Christian country, and that God has blessed us with this 250 years. And
Yeah.
Martin Luther King made a very profound statement, and that was, "There's no way that Christianity and Marxism, communism, socialism, central planning can coexist because." The Christian faith is based on peace, love, and as you just said, individual, the pursuit of happiness. And so, if there's never been a godless society that has produced anything since time began other than poverty in the long term.
Yeah, equal misery is what they start with, and then
Mhm.
it gets worse from there. And then some of the elites that get in charge consider themselves exalted figures that can then decide for the masses what's good for them, and pretty soon you have a dictatorship. And from there, it doesn't actually end up looking too different from other dictatorships, except some dictatorships had prosperous time periods. Communism pretty much just rides it down to the bottom, and then when it collapses, they show up another 20 years later calling themselves something else, with new packaging saying, we're democrat socialists, don't you understand, that's not communism. And it's
Yes,
like,
it is.
it is. It is. It's just the new and improved communism, which is actually worse than the old communism for people who don't recognize it for what it is. No, this is why I'm just concerned when Tina Kotek and the folks that are running the state just don't seem to be concerned that Oregon is falling behind the rest of the country and behind the rate of inflation. That is what I would declare an emergency. I would call the legislature in session and start figuring out to do whatever I had to do to start making it so that Oregon is a place people would want to do business, that if they're doing business, they want to stay here and expand, that they'd want to hire workers, that they would consider it a place to invest, that people would want to relocate from other states to come here because it's such a great place to live and work. And none of that falls into the emergency category for the people running our state. Why is that?
Retain and recruit. The best form of government actually is a dictatorship where the ruler actually cares deeply for the well benefit of the people. That just doesn't happen because most people, through their human nature, they cannot push themselves away from the table. So that's how our founding fathers come up with the republic. The beauty of representative government. So yeah, how do we keep businesses? To your point, to your question, it's a tax structure. It's a general attitude. It's the regulatory process in Oregon, outside of even the land use system, is. I mean, it just makes everybody want to give up. So everything adds cost, and if you can't stay in business without two words: controlling cost. And so that's the key. I learned that clear back in my 20s. Had to learn the hard way, but it's such a such an important focus. And so keeping people here that want to do the hard work of putting people to work. You got to look at the states are being successful right now. That's Tennessee, Indiana, certainly Texas, certainly Florida, South Carolina. Roseburg Lumber has employed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people here in my district over the years. And yeah, they've moved about a third, I think it is. Don't quote me on that. About a third of their entire operation to South Carolina to to mill pine. Oh,
No pine.
terribly, a terribly inferior tree.
Yeah, because we have. I mean, Roseburg was the world's the capital of
Yep.
of timber, right? The
Yep.
world's capital of timber.
When
And
timber was king, and we're going to return it somehow, some way.
I think so too. I think there's people who recognize this and they just have to vote that way. And we have to get others to see it that way and understand the real potential for prosperity using this very renewable resource that we will not run out of. That's the other thing. It's crazy that people think we might run out of timber. It's like no, we couldn't if we tried at this point. They couldn't do it. This is how we actually have more timber than we had in the 90s when they said we were going to run out, right? And if we can harvest at a rate that's pretty good clip, will help us manage the forest and make sure that they're less likely to be susceptible to wildfires and burn uncontrollably, but at the same time turn that into money, which will not only hire people and create uh, well-earning jobs, high-wage jobs, but it'll also help fund our public services, our public safety, our education system in
Yep.
parts of the state that, can't seem to catch a break because the governor doesn't even want them to build a golf course. This is the problem. And by the way, I found one of my favorite sayings from Ronald Reagan: socialism only works in two places: heaven, where they don't need it, and hell, where they already have it. And that's kind of in the theme of the dinner that we both attended the on Saturday night. That is fitting, isn't it? And do so,
Also true.
yeah, no, it's a fundamental truth. And I'm hopeful that that they are starting to wake up at this point. They really are. And I know also that uh, it takes sometimes a gas tax petition to get that first group of people to break loose and start thinking differently, just for once. I know we're going to get a whole new generation where the first time they got involved with anything as a grassroots volunteer and became active beyond just voting or watching TV is gathering signatures for a gas tax petition. You and I will have already witnessed new people coming forward that have never been involved with anything before, and they're like, I'm going to do this. And you know what happens when they do this? They want to do more.
Success brings success.
It does indeed.
And that
Any
foundation is going to get more Republicans into the Oregon House and Senate. I'm absolutely convinced.
Yeah, and we're shining a light on reality, that we're not making it up. This is a bill that the Democrats passed, and they said it was an emergency, and Tina Kotek signed it. So
The games that were played and costly. It's just like our Attorney General, Kevin. I'm getting a little frog in the throat here. I have no idea where this comes from. But anyway, 33 different lawsuits that he's filed against federal government, which he will not win, or most of them he won't win. And the sheer cost of that, instead of extending an olive branch, saying, okay, we don't agree with you, Donald Trump, and your administration, whatever the case, but we need that 800 million for our budget that's being withheld. And, here's what we're willing to do. Will you negotiate with us? And he would do a deal. He doesn't hate Oregon. He doesn't hate Oregonians, but we've not treated him very well. And so to sue him, and again, if my number is correct, I'm pretty sure it's 33 separate laws, some of them class action with other states, as you know. But that's not leadership. That's just trying to have our way. No matter what it takes, we're going to have our way. We're going to put our draw a line in the sand here and insist on losing, and the people get hurt, especially the lower and middle income people get hurt. And I've got a lot of those in my district, and it just really rubs me the wrong way.
well, and I've got something for the Attorney General to devote his time and attention to instead of suing the federal government. Lane County District Attorney Chris Perosa, he says the Oregon bail law has allowed an organized burglary ring to just slip away. And guess what? The people in this organized burglary ring, they were terrorizing, they were targeting Asian Americans, because they thought they were easy targets. They were sophisticated. They used jammers. They did all kinds of stuff. And it turns out that they uh, were foreign nationals. They're not Americans. And they're engaged in this activity. It says each suspect was given a $100,000 bail, meaning they only needed $10,000 to be released. They were arrested, taken to jail, and then automatically released. And he noted that many suspects are these foreign nationals that were involved. They had every incentive to disappear after that, to skip out on the bail. You're not supposed to give bail to people who are flight risks. That's the definition of why you don't give any bail. But we have these dumb laws in the state that are making it impossible for them to do something about organized crime rings going after just law-abiding citizens. And at first, down in Eugene, they thought it was, hate crimes. Turns out, crimes. Uh, why doesn't the attorney general drop everything and do something about that? Wouldn't people really listen to that?
It's just heart crushing. You look what's going on around the country. The 2 National Guardsmen shot in Washington, D.C. We've lost one. The other one's clinging to life. Then you had a group, and they haven't found them yet, that went into a children's party, killed 4 kids, shot 4 kids, and injured 9 others. And you go, where's this coming from? Who are these people? This is, I can't tell you. I won't say on the reporter what I think should be done to them when they find them, but we've got to push back against that. You look at what's going on in Minnesota right now. If you follow that story with Governor Tim there, that the state employees have banded together and challenged him, accused him, of wasting fraudulently through the Somali city. They form their own system of government. Nobody can get in. And anyway, these Somali citizens, this group, fraudulently took apparently $1 billion from Minnesota, and he's denying it. And it's just
this is Tampon Tim, right? Governor Tampon Tim.
Yeah. Waltz. And then I'm watching what's going on in, down by Venezuela. That's fascinating to watch. I'm all for blowing those gunboats or drug boats out of the water. It's just, you hate to see that, but do we have any choice? There's 300,000 people been killed by fentanyl in the United States. I think in the last 3 years, or maybe that's the figure every year. I apologize.
The annual figure has been about 100,000 a year.
Yeah.
And so you're right. It was 300,000. It dropped a bit, but it was because they started using Narcan just to make it so that people would survive and live a little bit longer, so they die later of fentanyl overdoses. But it's also overwhelmed our emergency services because they're running around administering fentanyl to people instead of getting them off fentanyl. And so it's almost like the solutions end up being worse than the problem as they perpetuate these. And you're right. Think of the mom. We met a mother on the campaign trail back in 2024 in Reedsport. I won't forget. She came up. She talked to Monique Despain and said, "I just lost my son not long ago. He's 39 to fentanyl overdose." And you know what? I think that's who Congress should be listening to when they think about these drugs trying to smuggle to the United States. Those are invaders. They don't mean well for us. And I think that what they should do is invite these moms who are seeing their families devastated and destroyed by this poison. They should go and bring them in and see what they have to say about taking out these people that are bringing in these illicit substances. And I also know that when a nation state gets behind this stuff, it takes on a new level of seriousness. When a president of a country is actually part of a organized crime system to advance this, then that's a national security issue, right?
Oh, yes. The sooner we get this figured out, we got to quit closing prisons around the country and letting people You know that one. I didn't even bring it up, but the one guy that in Chicago that set the woman on fire, being arrested, no exaggeration, almost 70 times in his
Yeah, right.
lifespan. And the judges that would let him out should have known that he was going to short circuit at some point and really, truly hurt someone. And this happens in the United States of America. That's why we fight, right? And our kids protected. We better be on guard, because if we overlook that responsibility, beyond the education system, that's why no biological males in women's sports. I think that's finally starting. We're starting to win that one, Kevin.
I think we are. We're starting to win. As Maggie Thatcher once said, back when the Labour Party dominated Great Britain, and she was the only female rising to the top, and became the first female world leader of a major nation, um, and obviously prime minister. She said, first you start winning arguments, and then you start winning elections. I think we're starting to win arguments. We're starting to. We're starting to win. We're getting the high ground on many of these issues. Some people are in disbelief, and I know I talk to them, and they're like, "Well, that's not true. They're not really letting men into women's sports." And then when they can't avoid it anymore, at some point they're like, "Well, I'm sure it's not harm. It's no harm. They can. It's just one. You know." And we know where all these things lead. They lead to, and in the end, you don't really have any women's sports. Is what you end up with. No one wants to play it, or the ones that are in it can't compete with the men, the new and improved women called men. That's what they won't be able to do. And since when did it become okay to not defend women and make sure that they have things like privacy or safety? I don't know. I don't know when that happened, but you're right. We're starting to win that argument, and I think it can and will translate into winning elections. Well, once again, this has been a fantastic episode of Captive Audience, as always, with you, Representative Boyce. And is there anything else that you wanted to share with folks or leave them with? I guess we should tell them the website for the tax petition, which is notaxor.com. You can get information there. You can get information at stopthagastax.com. Both of those websites give you plenty of info. Is there anything you want to kind of point people to? Because I think we've got some legislative days coming up too, where stuff's going to start happening in Salem.
Yep, January. I'll tell you a quick story. My mom is 94. My sister, my wife, had me set up to take her to the Curry County Courthouse, get her picture taken. I didn't know why. It just, I was too busy. Anyway, I go in, I know all those people, and they just make a big fuss over me. Well, here's my mom comes walking behind me. They totally ignore me, and so she gets her picture taken for her passport. So I get her back in the car, and I said, Mom, you're getting your passport renewed. Where are you going to fly to? And she says, I think I'm going to fly to Russia and straighten out Putin.
Well,
so I just want to encourage everyone to be involved and stand up for everything you believe in, and support the people that are out there working, and that want to make Oregon return Oregon to normal, that want to make Oregon the best place on the planet to live. And none of us are immune from putting out that effort. We really need you, and it'll pay big dividends. Invest that time, and knock on 20 doors, make 20 phone calls, donate $20, whatever you can do.
Yeah, all of those will make a difference, and they're like drops in a waterfall, right? Mm-hmm. Just individual drops, but it can be a torrent for change and for improvement in the future. Thanks again for joining us here, Court. Really appreciate it. And we look forward to having you on again. Keep us up to date. And I'll see you at the next event, too. I don't know are you going to be at the Umpqua women's thing this week?
Yep.
Wednesday?
Yep.
I'm going to see you there.
I'm actually in Roseburg all week. Here's another quick story for you. So, sometimes when you're staying in different motels, because my, California, Oregon border up to the Douglas County Fairgrounds, 180 miles one way. And so sometimes you wake up in the morning and you kind of forget where you are. Mm-hmm. And so the other morning I'm thinking, wow, if I'm alive, I didn't make it to heaven. And if I'm dead, how come I have to go to the bathroom?
Yeah, really. Yeah, that's right. And remember, they don't need communism in heaven. So you reached the correct conclusion. You're alive. So
you
anyway,
become a good friend. Look forward to seeing you soon. Maybe Thursday night or Wednesday night.
Wednesday night. We'll see you
All
on
right,
Wednesday
Paul.
night. And safe travels. And thanks everyone for watching here. You guys make it go, and you got to share this with folks because they just don't even get to know folks like Representative Boyce in quite in the way you get to know them on the Captive Audience, where we really delve into the issues and talk and share a lot of ideas and thoughts. So share it with everyone you can, and we will see you tomorrow night on the next episode of the Captive Audience. Thank you, everyone.
Good night from Doc Holliday.
Good night.